RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education, and ISO certified.
So I hope I am very much audible. And is my screen visible?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay, so very good. So today's topic is all about questionnaire design, development, and validation. So this is very, very important segment because the questionnaire design, what you're going to do is going to determine the result, what you're going to derive, whether it's going to be insightful or innovative, or it's like a common research what others do. So questionnaire designing, development, validation plays a very, very important role in research. So coming to the very first thing, that is how to design a questionnaire. That's a basic or a fundamental question, right? So I tell you what, from the experience point of view, first you have to align your questionnaire with the objectives what you have framed. You need to make sure that each and every objectives has a set of questionnaire. And the most important thing is that once the objectives are defined and the questionnaire or the factors therein with each objectives are identified and you have been started working on the questionnaire, make sure that every questions what you frame is easily recognizable by your target audience, because you should know where you are speaking to whom you are speaking to. If you're going to use too much vocabularies for a small startup SME who is either illiterate or just have completed the higher secondary education, it's not going to work out. So you always need to know who is your target audience and you need to frame the sentences accordingly. And the most important thing is the question type. Don't It's always advisable to have a close-ended questions, but the thing is that at some circumstances you may also have an open-ended questions. So you need to decide where to have a close-ended questions and when to have a open-ended questions. And most importantly is the question wording, and finally is the question orders. So these all things should be kept in mind, while you frame a questionnaire. So designing a questionnaire, you need to think about the objectives, you need to think about the target audience, you need to know where to use a close-ended question, when to use the open-ended question, and most importantly, how to frame the question wordings, and finally the question orders. So question orders, in a sense, I tell you. Let me start with the very first thing, that is the questionnaire design. I told you, right? It all starts with the objective. Everything has a link. The statement of problem is linked with the research gap has a link with the statement of problem. The statement of problem has a direct link with the objectives, and using the objectives only, we may able to frame the questionnaire, we may able to design a significance of the study, we may able to write the scope of the study. So questionnaire is fundamentally is a base. So questionnaire is fundamentally is a base, because after going through many review of literature, many research questions may arise, a research gap may arise, that will be incorporated into statement of problem, that is finally converted to questionnaire. This questionnaire is the foundation for everything, including the questionnaire design. So you need to make sure that apart from the recommendation and suggestion based objectives and the study and understand the concept, the other objectives what you have framed have a separate set of factors and the associated variables. So I will show you an example so that you won't be having a confusion. So don't worry. So in this session, I will be showing you how to frame, how this is designed based on the objectives, how the questionnaires are designed. So the very first thing is that for each and every objective, a fundamental objective, the analysis based objective, the estimation based objective, the impact or influence based objective, or relationship based objective, any objective that you have having a factor should have a separate set of questionnaire, that is the factor and the variables. Then is the questionnaire design. The questionnaire design, the most important thing, many people misunderstand that questionnaire design is all about you writing a question. No, you writing a question by thinking about your target audience. That's very, very important. I actually remember the very first research when I did almost a decade before when I was pursuing my PhD. The thing is that after that, it was during the ICSSR project, I really understood how to frame the questionnaire. At that point of time, I learned, and after that, I implemented. The thing was, it was related to the GDP and export import. So my target audience was the exporter and importer of Tamil Nadu. The problem was that the most of the exporter importer were not well educated. So when I framed the question, most of the technical oriented question, they may not, they are not in the position to understand. Even the management guys doesn't understand the questions thoroughly. So I was supposed to reframe the entire questionnaire set so that everyone who reads could able to understand. So always make sure that when you design a questionnaire, think about your target audience. Who is your sample? Who is your target audience? And thinking about them, write the questionnaire. Write the questionnaire so that they may able to understand. And even if they don't understand, it should not create an ambiguity. So that's very, very important. This you can rectify, you can design your question in a very beautiful way when you do a pilot study. That also I will tell you. Yesterday, a gentleman asked me about how to conduct a cron batch alpha test. That I will be telling you. That's one of the part of the question validation. So don't worry, I will be illustrating you about it practically. So know about your target audience and then frame the question. And the third is the questionnaire type. It is always advisable to have a closed-ended question. It can be of any type. It can be of yes or no, or categorical based question, a metric based question, a Likert scale based question. But it is always advisable to have a close-ended questions. But in case if you wanted to know something meticulously, if you personally think apart from the options what you are given, there are other options to be taken into consideration. At that point of time, you can go for open-ended questions. Excuse me. Everyone, please mute yourself, ma. See, as I stated before, I'm not here just speaking or talking about. Actually, I'm telling out of my experience. Every word has a value. So the thing is that when you talk, you reproduce whatever you have already inherited in your mind. But when you listen, there is a possibility of you getting new knowledge. So listen to me. There is a possibility of you gaining some or a significant amount of knowledge from me based on my experience. So please, everyone, unmute yourself. Okay, so coming to the point. So always try to use a close-ended questionnaire. So always try to use a close-ended questionnaire. And at certain cases where you personally believe that there are some more options should be taken into consideration, at that point of time, you can go for open-ended questionnaire. But while you make statistical analysis, it is always advisable to convert the open-ended questionnaire into close-ended questionnaire. So then comes the questionnaire design. So when it comes to social science research or your business research, it is always advisable to have a question orders. That is, first you always obviously consider a demographic profile. Sometimes you consider the business profile as a second section, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth all the sections goes as per the objectives. Each and every objective is what you're framed, apart from the study concept and the recommendation suggestion. So all objectives should have a separate set of questionnaire, and the questionnaire, that is the factor and the variables associated with it. So once a questionnaire is being designed, the next step is the questionnaire development. So what this questionnaire development is all about? So we as an individual design a question, but when we enter into the field, when we start collecting the data practically into the real world, we feel that many of the questions has an ambiguity. Many of the questions are really hard for the respondents to understand. So what you do is that you reframe the questions, you redesign the questions, you sometimes restructure the entire question. So this is nothing but a drafting the questionnaire. So drafting the questionnaire. So at the time of pilot study, you understand what question at the pilot study, in the sense, yes, pilot study is nothing but a study that is conducted with a minimum sample. The minimum sample, say 35 to 50, so that in order to know whether you are going in a right track or whether you are using a right research methodology, whether you are adopting right research design, whether you are adopting right sample, whether you are using the right sampling technique. So in order to know whether you are using right research methodology, pilot testing is the best way. You need to get into the field and you need to get to know whether you are adopting a right research methodology. At this point of time, you will get to know what are the unwanted questions in the factor, what are the wanted questions, most wanted questions in the factor. Now, what has to be removed, what has to be changed, and at the end is the revising of the questionnaire. So questionnaire development comes here. Previously, we have seen about the questionnaire design. So let me try to recall. So when it comes to questionnaire designing, which means it is just a draft. It's just a draft. It's not the finalized questionnaire. So in order to design a question, what you do is that based on each and every objectives, you frame you have a factor for each and every objective. You will be having a factor, and for that factor you will be collecting the variables and you will be designing the questions. So these questions has to be articulated in such a way that your target audience, your sample respondents, able to understand very clearly what you want to say. And it is always advisable to have a close-ended questions. But in case, if at all, if you personally think that there is a possibility of some more options that you have not considered in your question, you may go for open-ended question, but it is always advisable to have a closed-ended questions. And when it comes to question wordings, you always need to make sure that it has no ambiguity. And question order is nothing but when it comes to business research, you will be having a demographic profile, sometime followed by the business profile, and then followed by the factor and the variable based questions for each and every objectives. So now you have designed your questions. Now you have designed your question, but you have not tested or you have not given to the sample respondent to check whether all the questions what you have framed is right or what. So in order to develop the question, in order to make a development, you have to do three important steps. One, after drafting the question, you need to go for grammatical continuity, clarity check. Once it has been done, go to a field, collect the data from 35 to 50 samples so that you may able to know which of your questions are having an ambiguity, which of your questions is completely unwanted, which of the questions are very important, which of the questions has to be scrutinized, restructured and redesigned, and finally revise the questions, revise the questionnaire, and finally once again get into the field and collect the data as per your sample size. Say for example, if your population is unknown, say for example, the online customers. Obviously, the populations are unknown. So what you have to do, you have to collect a sample size of more than 385. So this is what is a questionnaire development. Now you have developed the questionnaire. Now you have to check the validation. So this process, let me stop with this. Let me stop with this. I will show you a real example of how everything is done step by step practically by using a document. Um, please hold on a minute. So someone tell me, is my screen visible? Is my Excel sheet visible?
It's visible, sir.
Okay, so this is the research I recently carried out. This is related to green HRM practices in banking industry. So what I have did is that there are nearly 4 important factors. One is green HRM practices, of course. Second is the employee performance. Then comes the environmental performance. Then comes the organizational stability. So these are the 4 important factors for my study. So these are based on my objectives. So my first objective was to study and understand the green HRM practices adopted by the banking industries in Tamil Nadu. So that was so that is study. For this, I don't require any questions. My second objective was to identify the important green HRM practices adopted by the banking in the commercial banks in Tamil Nadu. For this, I have a question. You see, I have questions and I have variables. Similarly, my third objective was to identify the employee performance due to green HRM practices in the commercial banks in Tamil Nadu. So that is my second objective. So for second objective is my employee performance. For employee performance, once again, I have the questionnaire. And my third objective was to identify, to estimate the impact of green HRM practices on the environmental performance. So my my fifth objective was to explore, no, to elucidate, to elucidate the impact of green HRM practices on the organizational stability in the commercial banks in Tamil Nadu. And finally, this last objective was to provide suggestion and recommendation for the commercial banks to adopt green HRM practices. So so for first objective and last objective, there is no factors associated. So you can leave that is. For other factors, other objectives, I have framed the questionnaire. So how I framed the questionnaire. So that's the important thing is that in order to frame a questionnaire, first is the employee performance. Yeah, let us leave the green HRM practices, that is common. So first is the employee performance. For under employee performance, I have collected many review of literature, but if you collect a review of literature, if you go beyond 30 or 40 review of literature, you will be seeing the same variables getting repeated again and again in a different manner. So which means I personally identified 12 variables. Personally, after going through nearly 30 to 40 articles related to employee performance due to green HRM practices in bank, I found out nearly 12 variables, Even after going beyond 40 or 50 articles, I see that the same variables getting repeated once again and again, which means these all are the variables.
First unit accounts full Monday, second.
Okay, so these all are the variables that I have collected from the following citations. So I have also written the citations. So these are all are the variables. So for based on these variables, I have framed the questions. You see, the green HRM practices positively impacts the employee productivity. Here, employee productivity is a variable. So using employee productivity as a variable, I have framed the question. You see, this is clear, concise, and clear. Clear. So that is how you have to frame a questionnaire. So the next variable I identified is the level of commitment and engagement. So so the employee demonstrate a high level of commitment and engagement due to green HRM initiatives. So each and every variables here is converted into a questionnaire. So this is how I did. So for each and every objective, there will be a factor. For each and every factor, I gone through various articles and I have identified the variables, and these variables are converted into questionnaires. So this is the first part. This is the very first part. So for similarly, environmental performance, I have gone through various literature reviews and I have identified the following variables, and I have I have converted the following variables into the questionnaire. So this is how you have to do. So this is what is the first part. The first part is the questionnaire design. I made sure that each and every, actually this is the finalized questionnaire. While I framed the questionnaire, I noticed many misconceptions when I sent for data collection. I found that many of the questions was a little bit vague. It was creating confusion among the readers. So I identified those questions and then I scrutinized in such a way that it has a good continuity and clarity. So this was the finalized questionnaire. So this is how the questionnaire design is done. Once the questionnaire design is done, it is sent for pilot testing, and then finally the questionnaire is developed. Once the questionnaire is developed, once the questionnaire has been made, how to validate the questionnaire? That's the important part, right? So I tell you what. So let me stop sharing this. Okay. Okay. So this is how from the literature reviews, I identified the variables. From the variables, I identified the questionnaire. And while doing the pilot study, the drafted questionnaire is revised and the finalized questionnaire was created. Once the finalized questionnaire was created, it has to be validated. At the time of, sorry, yeah. So how it is validated? It is validated by the following techniques. That is the content validity, then is the construct validity, reliability, and pilot study analysis. I tell you how all these, what are the various techniques to make a validation, a proper validation. When you design a questionnaire and develop a questionnaire, first parallelly go for content validity. Go for expert review. Ask the opinion of the expert whether you have framed the questionnaire in a right way or what. At the same time, go to the field, ask the target audience and evaluate how your questionnaire is performing. So this is how you have to validate the content. The second is the construct validity. So what is the construct validity? Statistically speaking, construct is nothing but a factor. You can say factor and variables or construct and items. Both are the same. Don't get confused. I repeat once again, factor and variables or construct and items are one and the same. So in order to know whether the factor, for example, I have employee performance as one factor. I wanted to know all the variables within it or within the factor or within the factor. So in order to know do that, you can go for construct validity. So to do construct validity, you have to do the factor analysis. So factor analysis, as you think, is not just a dimension reduction, but the KMO and ballot test itself illustrate whether your factor and the commonalities and the pattern matrix clearly illustrate whether your factor and and the variables or the construct and the items are closely related to one another or what. And then to check the reliability of the questionnaire, you have to do the Cronbach alpha test. So what is this Cronbach alpha test? Say, for example, obviously your sample, the sample respondents are the same. You are not going to use 2 or 3 different set of samples until and unless it is required. For example, if you're going to do a research on travel and tourism, sometimes you are forced to collect the data from the customer, that is the tourist. At the same time, you are supposed to collect the data from the tourism operator. You have 2 different set of samples at that time. At that point of time, you can go for stratified cluster, since you are having 2 different types of stuff. But most importantly, reliability is or checked to know whether this particular questionnaire what you have done is completely reliable, as from the research perspective, and the all the factors and the data and you have collected from the right sample or what. So in order to do that, you can do that using at the time of pilot study analysis using Cronbach alpha test. That is the measure of internal consistency. So to put it simple, the first is the content validity. So content validity, you have to do it with the expert and the target audience. The next is a construct validity. If you have a doubt whether this variable falls under this factor or that factor, we say you have nearly 3 to 4 factors and you have one variable, you don't know where to put. At that point of time, you can go for construct validity, or you can use statistical techniques like factor analysis. And then reliability check. Reliability check, it means that you are checking whether you are taking the data from the right respondents and the results are compared to check whether it is reliable at that point of time or what. And this is done by using the Cronbach alpha, which is an internal consistency check statistically. So the yesterday question was this, how to do a Cronbach alpha test. So one of the gentlemen asked me, so don't worry, I will be illustrating statistically using SPSS software itself. So, okay. So overall, it's all about after designing the questionnaire, you need to develop and then validate the questionnaire. And this is a meticulous process. I tell you what, if you're going to play with this questionnaire, obviously your research will end up clumsy. So you have to take a very good, meticulously, you need to work on the questionnaire. As you have seen the Excel sheet, what I have illustrated, you saw, right? For each and every variable, I had a citation. From each and every variable, I have converted into question. I also made sure that all my construct and items falls within the categories. So in order to check those, I also have performed the Cronbach alpha test and factor analysis. I don't want to put too much pressure. So I don't want to, let me teach you how to do the Cronbach alpha test. So, let me share my SPSS source file for this. Yeah. Someone tell me, is my SPSS source file is visible? Is my source file is visible?
Yes, sir, it's
Okay. So This is the SPS source file associated with the questionnaire what I designed and what we discussed. So this EP1, EP1 that is related to employee performance. Okay. So EP1 is employee performance. You see there are nearly, sorry. Excuse me, just hold on a minute. I think I opened the wrong data set. Uh, okay. Yeah, actually that is the data set. Okay, anyhow, let me share the entire screen. Is my entire screen visible, ma?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first, in order to perform the Cronbach alpha test, what you have to do is that you need to make sure that it has a Likert scale option. You cannot perform, you can never perform a Cronbach alpha test for a categorical question. Categorical question in the sense age, gender, education qualification, job position, department. These are categorical questions. You can never, ever perform a Cronbach alpha test for the categorical based question. You can only perform Cronbach alpha for the Likert scale based questions. And the most important thing is that when you are performing Cronbach alpha, you should not consider the entire questionnaire. You should consider factor by factor. You should not consider the entire questionnaire. You should consider factor by factor. That's very, very important. Say, for example, there are so many factors. Say, for example, here, here green HRM. Just a minute. You see, the green HRM practices positively impacts employee productivity. Let me go from employee performance. Okay, so for this for this 16 for organization sustainability, there are 6 questions. So for organization sustainability, how to do a Cronbach alpha test? Go to analyze, go to uh, sorry, go to scale, click on reliability analysis, and then select the entire factor, not the entire questionnaire, but the entire factor. For organization stability, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 set of questions. I'm going to move that to the item stating the SPSS as these are the variables for which you need to collectively perform Cronbach alpha test. And then in the statistics, I'm going to check box scale if item deleted. I tell you why. If scale if item deleted is checkbox, you will clearly able to know which item has to be removed, which has the lowest reliability value in the questionnaire. So, oh, sorry, actually, I have not seen the chat box. It was now I have seen the chat box. Can you please suggest what should be the ideal size of the questionnaire? Yeah, I will tell you, Ma. How to differentiate one data set to the another data. I will talk about this later, ma. Let me complete the entire thing because we have very limited time. I need to cover many things. Let's see. Okay. So then click continue and then click OK. Now I got the output. What was my output? That is 9.917, which is really good. Really good in the sense when the Cronbach alpha value is greater than 0.7, it means your construct, that is of the organization's sustainability as a construct and all the items are reliable for the current study and for the futuristic study. That is the interpretation. And you see, if you take a close look at the output, if you take a close look at the output, this question, this organization sustainability effort enhances competitiveness. This has 0.905 Cronbach alpha, highest, the third question has the highest Cronbach alpha, followed by this one, next this one, and this one, and this one, and finally is the 0.899. And if you, in case, if you encounter any of the situation, like if your Cronbach alpha value is less than 0.7, and if you have a suggestion that there is a possibility of you having a suggestion that if you remove any one question, your Cronbach alpha value will increase. So at that point of time, you have to remove that particular set of questionnaire. Say, these are the question. Actually, for this, we have got a significant Cronbach alpha result. Let me see, is there any value less than point? Okay, there is no value less than 0.7. So here, in case, just think of, in case if your Cronbach alpha value is 0.618, if we are 618, and all the values here are less than 0.6, except this one, which is say 0.908 itself, 0.908, which means if you're going to remove this particular question, your Cronbach alpha value will be 0.908. So that is how you have to make an interpretation. So the scale if item value has to be always checked box to know which of the item has to be removed so that your construct Cronbach alpha value will increase. This will tell you which questionnaire should be removed so that your Cronbach alpha value increase. In case if you don't check box, you will be getting only this table. Whether what is your Cronbach alpha value? That is the only table you get. You won't be getting this table. This table will tell you which question should be removed to increase your Cronbach alpha value. So that is what here. So now let me start answering all the questions, ma. So let me stop sharing. So as far as Cronbach alpha is concerned, go to analyze, go to scale, reliability analysis. And the most important thing is that Cronbach alpha test cannot be conducted for the categorical question and it should not be conducted for the entire data set. No, it is completely wrong. You have to do Cronbach alpha for factor by factor. For each and every factor, you have to do the Cronbach alpha test. For the organization sustainability, I have to do separately. Similarly, for employee performance, I have to do separately. So similarly, for each and every factor, I have to do the Cronbach alpha test. So in order to do that, you need to put the test variable into the items under statistics. You have to check box scale if item deleted and then click continue and OK. You will be getting the output. So the output, the overall Cronbach alpha value will be illustrated. At the same time, what will be the value of the construct in case if a particular item is deleted? That will also be illustrated so that you may be able to make decision if the value is less than 0.7. The 0.7 is the break-even point, which means 0.7 the value of the Cronbach's alpha value should be greater than 0.7. If it is less than 0.7, you have to add some more variables, some more items into your questionnaire in order to make it more validatable. So this is how you have to do the Cronbach alpha test to validate at the point of pilot testing. So let me close this thing. So today we have discussed about the questionnaire design and excuse me, I think my screen is not visible. Yeah. So today we have discussed about the questionnaire design, which consists of five important steps. For each objectives, there should be a questions, and based on target audience, you need to frame the questionnaire. Most of the questions should be close-ended. Questionnaire wordings are important. The question order is also important. And after that, in order to develop a questionnaire, after drafting the questionnaire, go for the pilot testing, and then finally revise your questionnaire. And then in order to check once again for the validation, go for content validity, which means go for expert opinions and the target audience, go for construct validity using factor analysis, then the reliability analysis, and comes the pilot study. So these all are in order to do the pilot study, in order to check the reliability, go for Cronbach alpha test. So I also have practically explained how to perform Cronbach alpha test using SPSS. So I hope I have shared not most of the things associated with question design, development, and the validation. So remember the questionnaires, remember the Excel sheet, what I thought, remember the SPSS, what I thought, remember the points, what I have made to conduct a Cronbach alpha test. So now let me answer one by one the questions in the chat box. So the first question is, can you please suggest what should be the ideal size of the questionnaire? So ideal size of the questionnaire, it actually there is no limit, but you know about your target audience, you know, right? So your questionnaire should be in such a length that it answers each and every objectives. And you also need to make sure it's not going beyond 15 pages, because the respondents will be restless and they won't be in a position to answer you genuinely. They will be they will be becoming an unengaged respondents. So you should be, as I stated before, you should know about the target audience, and you should know their capacity, how far they can give, what should be the length of the questionnaire, so that they could ideally be genuine and giving you the answer. So the most, as far as my opinion, for each and every objective, there should be a questionnaire, and the ideal size, if it's 10 to 12 pages, it would be okay. If it goes beyond more 15 or 15 pages, obviously the respondents will be an unengaged respondent. This is my experience point of view when I have collected the data. So try limiting your questionnaire to less than 12 pages, not more than that. How to differentiate one data set to another data set? How to increase the citation of the article? Oh, this how to increase? You cannot increase the citation of the article, ma. People has to read your article so that as I tell you what, actually previously many people have tried self citation, but as of now we have RCHUB ID and other IDs, which means your self citation will not work out, will never work out. If any one of the author is once again is been repeated in the same article what you're going to write, whether it's a second author or a third author or your guide, obviously it won't be considered for citation. You may not able to increase the citation. My personal suggestion is take an article that is completely different, that is unexplored area, but you cannot do when you are pursuing your PhD. But after your PhD, try to do some research work that is completely unexplored. This will increase the citation. Which tool is best for question? Which tool is best for question? Which tool is best for question? I don't understand, ma. Can you please explain me what you're talking about? Which tool in the sense? Are you asking about the statistical tool or the statistical technique or the SPSS tools? I mean, sorry, the statistical tools like SPSS, AMOS, eViews. I tell you what, everything has a different set of application. SPSS has a different set of applications. AMOS has a different set of application. eViews has a different set of application. Stata, Systat, everything it has a different set of application. PLS, one application is not like other. So we cannot say which tool is best, but the thing is that based on your questionnaire, based on your sample size, based on your respondents, I tell you, I will in the next class, in the next session, I will explain you how to select a proper statistical technique for your study. That is the next topic, right? That I will discussing tomorrow, ma. So okay, so these are the questions in the chat box. So anyone would like to ask any questions in today's session? Is everything clear?
Sir, a question, sir.
Yeah, please, ma.
Sir, can you please perform factor analysis in SPSS for dimension reduction?
Factor analysis. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
okay, let me show the output of the factor analysis itself. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know where I've kept that output. Just hold on a minute, ma. Okay, just I will tell you. Let me tell you. So let me share the entire screen. Actually, in the same SPSS data set, I have conducted the factor analysis. Okay, let me share the entire screen, ma. I think that would do good. Okay. Uh, so in order to do factor analysis, say for example, actually this factor I have segregated in just think that all these are the questions. All these are the questions. I don't know whether it comes under one factor. I asked all the question. I have not segregated into any sub factors. Just think like that. So factor analysis just like that. Factor analysis, you don't know what are the sub factors. So under one factor, you have considered all the questions, and then using the factor analysis, you are going to identify the sub factors. So in order to do that, go for dimension reduction, go for factor analysis, select the variables. Select the variables. Say for example, all these are the question. Actually, I have categorized into factors. Just think all comes under one questions. Okay. And then go for descriptive statistics in SPSS, select the KMO and ballot test. I tell you what this KMO and ballot test is all about in the output. And click extraction by eigenvalue. Extraction by eigenvalue. Don't go for fixed number. That will never give you a proper total variance explained. Rotation, I suggest go for Varimax rotation or Promax rotation. Both are good statistical technique to provide a good pattern matrix. You can either, but until and unless your total variance is not significantly good or very good, you can go for Quantimax or the other method. But other cases, it is always advisable to, by default, go for Varimax or Promax rotation. It's a statistical technique to give a good pattern matrix. And then you don't need to, I'm not going to save variable because already I have saved. and sort by size. Sort by size, because if you are going to put that our factor analysis output file into AMOS, it is always advisable to have the advise the pattern matrix to be get sorted by the size. Suppress the variable by 3 so that I don't see unwanted values. And then click OK. You see, now I have got the output. Now I will explain you need to interpret. So the KMO value should be greater than 0.5. If it is greater than 0.5 and your ballot test significance value is less than 0.05, which means your factor analysis is good and it will produce a good output that is interpretable and that has significance. And then you have to look at the commonalities. If commonality extraction value is all greater than 0.5, which means you have factor, your construct and items are loaded properly, which means all the variables are loaded into these 4 factors. These 4 factors properly. And in order to, and the next important criteria, what you have to check is that first you have to check, the first criteria what you have to check is the KMO test and the ballot test value. The second, you have to check for the extraction values. It should be greater than 0.5. And then you have to check the commonality cumulative percentage. It should be greater than 60%. If it is 72%, it's very, very good. Then only you have to check the pattern matrix. If you're going to paste this pattern matrix, the rotated component matrix, you will be able to do the AMOS work. Using the factor analysis, you need to perform the CFA and then SEM. So the factor analysis have stated that all your questions can be categorized into 4 factors. 4 factors. So you have to read the question, and based on the first factor, the first set of questions, you need to name the factor. So you need to name the factor. So using the factor analysis, you are going to identify the new factor statistically. So that is what is the beauty. Factor analysis helps you identify the unknown factors, unknown sub-factors hidden in a major factor, and you can name the factor and you can claim that you have identified the factor statistically. So this is how the factor analysis are made. Factor analysis is done. Luckily, actually, we won't be getting a proper factor analysis, but you have got a good output, because most of the time, the KMO ballot test will be satisfied, but the extraction will not be greater than 0.5. And the commonalities and the cumulative total variance will be less than 60%, but it is, once again, it is greater than 60%. Everything is working out well in today's session. Okay. So rotated component matrix. You see, I have suppressed all the values less than 3. So any values less than 3 will not be displayed. So that is why I have put values 3. So now you can copy paste this value in the AMOS, and then you are using the pattern matrix builder, you can build the CFA, and then you can check whether the CFA is right or what. And then you can go for what do I say? You can go for the SEM model. Have you understood, Ma?
Yes, sir. Can you elaborate what is AMOS?
Oh, okay. It's okay. So I tell you, Ma.
Sir, AMOS is a tool, right, sir?
Yes. See, for example, in using SPSS, you can perform only analysis to check whether there is significant association between the variable, or significant difference between the variable, or significant relationship between the variable, but you cannot identify, you cannot perform analysis what will be the impact of one variable on the another variable with another mediating variable. So if there is triangulation, if to know whether the direct impact or indirect impact, at that point of time, we use AMOS software. I told you, right? There are different set of tools for statistics. SPSS, AMOS, EViews, PLS, various tools. All the tools are completely different. They have their own set of applications. So SPSS is a complete tool. It's a different tool. AMOS is a higher end tool to check the mediating effect and the moderating effect. So that is what the AMA is used for. AMA is used for generally performing the path analysis and the SEM model, structural equation model. So any other person, any other questions?
Sir, so if I want to perform common factor analysis, I want to perform it in AMAS, right, sir?
Yes, ma. That is not common factor analysis, ma. That is confirmatory factor analysis.
Sir, then how can I able to get a single value? Already I told I have three parts, sir: awareness, application, and future outlook, sir. Among these three parts, I have 15 to 16 questions in each part. Each part contains 16. Second part contains 18 to 19. Third part contains 24 to 25. That like questions. How to do each part questions like a single question?
Now you made a mistake. The thing is that for this, you cannot do factor analysis. Sorry, for this, you cannot perform confirmatory factor. You have already segregated into factor. So if you have already segregated into factor, you cannot perform the SEM or SEM model or confirmatory factor analysis. So for a set of, say for you have 22 questions in a factor or a 16 question in a factor. With that 16 question, you will be identifying the sub factor. With that sub factors, you will be doing CFA. And with that CFA factors, once it has been confirmed, you go for SEM model. So it is not the factors you have considered for your objectives. The SEM model is something what you create of unknown factor which is hidden within your study. You cannot, if you are already segregated into factor, it is useless, ma. It is useless. You can do only path analysis.
Then how to do that? Do that, sir, part analysis.
Path analysis, that is easy, man. You just that's a different set of in which means I need to teach you SPSS and almost individually. I think that is not the scope of the study as of today. In case in future we have a plan to conduct SPSS and almost EVS workshop. At that point of time, I teach you because it's a very broad topic that cannot be taught you within. It takes 1 or 2 hours, ma.
Sir, one more question in
Okay.
chat box.
Chat box. Sir, can you sir, for collecting reviews of literature apart from Google Scholar and Scopus, any other websites are there? This is also not in the scope, but I answer you. The thing is that every university have a connection. I mean, go to the library. That's my personal opinion because obviously they have access to the InflipNet and the show all the things. Yeah, they have access to their certain set of certain set of article the journals. So I advise you to go there, collect individually because apart from the Google Scholar and Scopus, that's the best way because the thing is that you can use Science Hub, but actually that is unethical. Yet, if you wanted to collect in a genuine way, you need to go to a university, or else you need to have an access over the InflipNet and other associated journals, which is really pretty costly for you. So I suggest go with the Google Scholar, go with the Google Scholar and Scopus based articles. And in case if you have an opportunity to go to any university, go to the library, access the article, download the article, and send it to your email or save it in your drive. That's more than enough. And the Anna University is there. Anna University Library is open to all. Madras University Library is open to all. Every university is open to every scholars. So don't worry, don't hesitate. Just go there, have an access, download the article, send it to a drive, or or save in the Mendeley. I hope you know what is Mendeley. So you can save the article. So that's a way. Any other questions, ma? Is construction of SEM mandatory these days for any study? No. It is advisable to fulfill your objectives. Analysis for the objectives, the result the interpretation for the objectives what you framed and the hypothesis is important. It is not the same. People are making it as if it's mandatory. No, SEM is not a mandatory one. If it is completely irrelevant to your objective, don't do it. Because as far as statistician as far as statistic is concerned, I know when it comes to structural equation model, 97% you won't be getting a valid SEM model. Either your NFI or your CFI or your PFI or your CMIN by degree of freedom, some value or RMSA value, RMR value will be not at all accountable. You won't be having sometimes local fitness also. Yet you will be illustrating it has CFA. I mean, it have fulfilled the CFA. The model is fit. No, actually, I tell you what. A good statistician can easily identify whether you have manipulated the data set or what. I tell you, when it comes to SEM, nearly 97% of the SEM cannot be validated. It won't be even having a local fitness. It is very, very hard. And if it doesn't comes out well, please don't ever think of doing SEM. If your research work is going to get into the hand of a good statistician, he may easily able to identify that your SEM model is useless. So try to fulfill your objective. For each and every objective, make sure you have a hypothesis and your hypothesis is being analyzed and interpreted and the findings and suggestions are made. That's what is mandatory. The SEM is not a mandatory because you are going to identify this unknown sub-factors. For that, we are going to do CFA and for that, we are going to do SEM, which is completely irrelevant to the objective. But if it is made, if you're going to create a model which is completely fit, it's at least having a local fitness, it's a very, very, very good contribution for your study. It will have a good contribution, but the thing is that it is not mandatory. So I hope all the questions are answered. So I hope today's session you have learned about question design, development, and validation. So meet you during the next session. Thank you all. Thank you, God. Take you. See you. See you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma.
Contact RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education. WhatsApp 9888 231 231.